Ronda Rousey is the female MMA fighter who was undefeated until recently. And, I mean, she was on top of the world. Her celebrity status blew up, and she was getting movie deals, and, you know, it was just a phenomenon. I remember, I don't even follow MMA, or at least I don't follow it closely in any serious way, and I would hear about her everywhere. So it's an incredible story, but she recently lost, and she had talked a lot of shit going into the fight, and then she lost. And then as a result of that, you had, naturally, the internet rain down holy hell on her, among other people. Because there's, I mean, keep it real, there's nothing funnier than somebody who's so convinced they're going to kick somebody's ass, and then they get rocked. So, it was a interesting fight and a wild situation that went down. But the story, it became very, very serious because she admitted recently that apparently she contemplated suicide after her loss. So she was on Ellen, and she said the following: "I did a lot of thinking, and I was like, why did this happen? I do believe all the best things come from the worst things. Every worst thing that happened in my life resulted in the absolute best things. So I'm thinking maybe just winning all the time isn't what's best for everybody." Okay, so this is the first part of her comment here. I think some of that's true, some of that's not true. So the idea that it's always the case, no matter what, that when the worst thing happens to you, then the best thing will happen to you. No, that's not the case with everybody always. But is it possible? Yes. And oftentimes, when somebody's on hard times, there's only one direction you can go from there. Now, you can perpetually stay at that very low spot, at your bottomed out spot, or you can rebound and come back up. And not everybody's going to be undefeated no matter what in all situations. In fact, almost nobody is. So all that's happened is when you're at your rock bottom, you've now made it so that you can start your comeback story. You know, it really is, if you think about it, an opportunity to make this kind of corny and cheesy here, but to be like, you know, in your own movie, and you're the leading character, and you just hit your rock bottom part, and then what happens in the movie is always when that's the case. They fight, and they fight, and they fight, and they get back to, you know, whatever kind of peak they wanted to get at in the first place. So, look, it's not true that always people bounce back from the worst in their lives to the best in their lives. But is it something that's much more possible than people think when they're at their bottom? Absolutely, that's the case. All right, now let me give you some more of what she said. "I was literally sitting there and thinking about killing myself, and that exact second I'm like, I'm nothing. What do I do anymore? And no one gives a shit about me anymore without this." Then she says, "But I looked up at my boyfriend, and I was like, I need to have his babies. I need to stay alive." Okay, so that last part, some people are going to get at her and say, isn't that more defeatist because you were doing this thing in your profession, in your field, and you were on top of the world, and then now you're just saying, I want to have his babies. And, you know, people who would scoff at the traditional female role would hate that. But look, my takeaway from this is, whatever makes somebody happy, as long as you're not hurting anybody, do it! Do it! Fuck everybody who's going to judge you and say, I'm against that because you're not bouncing back in the way I want you to bounce back. Fuck off. You know what I'm in favor of? Freedom of choice. Freedom of choice for everybody, including women. So if a woman decides that's what I want to do to make me happy, by all means. Now, if she were to come back and say, I don't want that, but I want to get to number one again, I would support her there as well. Because I'm not her. She has her own decisions to make. And I think it makes sense to support her either way. So don't ever feel bad for something that makes you happy that others might not like. No, fuck them. Who cares what they think? You're the one that's got to live with you. So if that's what truly makes you happy, then go in that direction. Now, the final thing I want to say about this is, to the idea that, well, you know, I wasn't perfect anymore, so I'm worthless. Look, man, even the people in the world who have that thing attached to them, that aura attached to them, the aura of invincibility and undefeated and never lost, even the people that have that, it's not true. It's not true. So, a perfect example would be somebody, specifically in the ring, because he's a loathsome person outside of the ring, but in the ring, Floyd Mayweather, undefeated. Oh my God, he's undefeated. This is a guy who's been able to do it all along. It's actually not true. He lost in the Olympics. Now, it was questionable because the ref was doing some weird stuff and there may have been something going on behind the scenes and it could have been fixed. But either way, on his record is that blemish. And he admits, I use that, losing in the Olympics, not getting the gold medal, I use that for fuel for the rest of my career. So even the people who you think super undefeated and they're perfect and I'm not perfect anymore and that makes me feel bad, they ain't perfect either. They're not perfect either. It's just what you do after you get struck down. Are you going to find something that makes you happy, or are you not going to find something that makes you happy? And I want to leave you with this one quote here because it's one of my favorite quotes of all time, and it's so incredibly telling, and people don't discuss this nearly enough. The quote is, "I've failed over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." Who said that? A guy by the name of Michael Jordan. So somebody who's widely considered to be the best ever. One of the best ever, if not the best ever. He was like, no, dude, you don't understand. I failed so many times, it's ridiculous. And he failed so many times, and the times that he won, people only focus on that, and they go, he's perfect! Oh my God, he's perfect! Except, no, none of us are perfect, and even the people that look like they have the perfect record, when you dig deeper, that's just not true. The details show something that's the opposite. So, what's the conclusion from that? What's the takeaway from that? You can always use those missteps as fuel moving forward to never make those mistakes again. So it's this mental reset that you're allowed to do. And in an ironic way, when you're at your rock bottom, it's a big opportunity to then move up from there and rebuild. And it may get to a point where people don't even remember that time when you were at the bottom. We certainly don't remember it with Michael Jordan, but he seems to remember it really, really well.